Coming to you from the city where more than 250 feature films are shot each year, it's Ventriloquism Weekly. Hello to everyone again on this wonderful Monday here in the Big Apple. Before we get to this week's episode, I want to give a quick shout out. And as I say, never believe your own publicity, so for that reason I won't repeat the content. But Jay Johnson wrote a small blog about this podcast in order to promote his episode, and the words he had to say, they truly humbled me. So go check it out. hellandhays.blogspot.com, hellandhays.blogspot.com. Of course, I never favor one kind word over the other, so let me take this time to thank all of you for your wonderful continued support of this program. I was actually afraid of drop-off, if I'm being honest, some drop-off during the break, but you guys came back stronger than ever, and I love you for it. Overall, that was the coolest part about our return, and it's wonderful and it warms my heart. And here we are again. I hope you guys are doing really, really well. This week we have Rob Condas. He is a junior in high school who has a special ability to turn stuffed animals into wonderful puppets. But that's not all this actor and ventriloquist can do. Here now to talk about his journey with ventriloquism and theater through the public education system is Rob Condas. Rob Condas, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
I am doing great. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
Well, one thing you told me you do that is very, very interesting and for a young ventriloquist is you build figures out of stuffed animals, and I want to get right to that. How did that come about?
It pretty much started right after I saw my first ventriloquist. I was walking down Beach Street in Virginia Beach, and he had this little softball puppet, and I went home and made it because it looked pretty easy, and had a lot of fun with it. So I just took out one of my old stuffed animals and cut a hole in the back, and over the years he's been modified more and more and more until he's actually become a working puppet.
So, off of that, I know some people that try to make puppets out of things. How workable have you been able to get these puppets?
Well, they range. It pretty much all depends on the stuffed animal you start out with. If you try to make one from just a normal kid stuffed animal with cheap material, and especially if it doesn't already have a opening mouth that you can work with or insert anything into, it can be very hard and end up looking very flimsy and not stage worthy.
Right, and so what are the techniques you found that help you create these puppets out of these stuffed animals? What do you do to make them stage ready?
Well, it's going to sound very awful, but you start off by cutting their head off. Yeah, and you pretty much just rip every part of their head open until you get into the mouth where you can insert anything you want into. I use cardboard or metal plates, and you can attach them using special glues like hot glue or E6000. And then you kind of have to sew it back together part by part until it kind of looks like it did, but with a sturdy mouth.
Right. That's just really cool. That's real ingenuity as far as creating something from something else from something. So now let's rewind and start how I normally like to start. And where did your journey in ventriloquism begin?
Well, going back to what I said before, it started on Beach Street in Virginia Beach. And for anybody who's been to the Fent Haven Convention, you've probably met Tom Crowell.
Yes.
He's the tech guy. And I saw him performing, and I'd seen a ventriloquist before, but I hadn't really seen a funny ventriloquist before. So, I saw him, and he was making jokes that I never expected to come from such a quirky little art like that. So, it just really inspired me, and I looked it up online, and went to my local library and checked out a book.
That's great, and as it is, we fall in love. So, how has ventriloquism kind of aided you in your high school journey? I know I see you on your Facebook here. We've been Facebook friends, I think, since this past convention. You do a lot of theater, and can you talk about just where it's taken you as a student?
All right. Well, I had a very odd opportunity that I never really expected to get. In my freshman year, we were putting on Alice in Wonderland, which was a play for seniors, and I was just a freshman at that point. But they were trying to figure out how to get a piece of mutton to speak, and the mutton was brought on by a waiter. It was on a platter. It was supposed to wiggle around and dance and talk to Alice. And so once my teacher found out that I was a ventriloquist, she called me over, and I was able to do it. I was the only freshman there. It was pretty cool, though. I got to work with a little mutton puppet. I got to be the waiter, too. It was very odd, but very fun. And, yeah.
So now, what kind of ventriloquism do you do? What side of this art are you drawn towards?
I do like putting on shows, but if you ever have heard of a walking ventriloquist, that's my favorite thing to do. I go to some kind of social event, and they ask me to just walk around and talk to the kids with the puppet. And it's improv, but you can do some pretty funny stuff, and the kids just love it. They love being able to actually interact with the puppet rather than just having something to watch.
Right, and does it make it a little more personal for you getting to see their reactions?
Oh, yeah, it really does. There's something very wonderful about working with kids. That line between reality and fiction is just so thin that they can like when they go to Disney World, they can just believe that they're talking to those characters. So if you have a frog, they completely believe that they're talking to a frog, and it's just wonderful.
Yes, that truly is. And has anything else from high school ever come up? Because I know in my educational career, it kind of crops up very often. Like, oh, you're a ventriloquist? Oh, all right. Well, we need to put you here, here, and here. And it's kind of weird the reactions you get, isn't it?
Yeah, it can range from disgust to actual impressed. So, but usually the reaction I've gotten hasn't been as, I think ventriloquism isn't being looked down on as much now as it has in past years. So, hearing more and more interest in the art. So, my teacher always knows that I'm there if they ever need a ventriloquist, and I've been pulled into my church for a whole bunch of social events. So, yeah, it's something that that you can do that probably a lot of people your age can't. So, if they ever need you, you're pretty much the only person they can contact. So, it can give you a cool position.
Yeah, there are so few, and this isn't a knock on the magicians at all, because I do magic as well. But there are so many magicians just because that has existed in its current form sort of for a while. And with ventriloquism, it's like lucky if there's one per town or something, So you're absolutely right. So off of that, being a high schooler and being someone active in their church, what kind of material do you write for the walking around and for the type of venue you usually play?
Well, I definitely I try to stray as far as I can away from dirty humor, especially playing to the audience I like to play to. But I also try to shy away from puns as much as I can, because if you use too many puns in a show, you can pretty much lose the audience in the first few minutes.
Yeah.
So, I can't say I've gotten many gigs, as they would call them, or paid gigs, but I do a lot of little stuff on the side. Like, I've been asked to do YouTube videos to advertise an event, or as I said, be in a production. But as a private worker, haven't got many big venues.
Well, it's tough. It is tough to break in, because there is a prejudice to ventriloquism. Oh, you talk to a doll? Well, okay, so that is that's why we're thankful for people like Jeff and Terry who have brought this back into the mainstream. And Is it something maybe more local, like there's just not a lot of places for shows, or is it what do you think it is in your area that you haven't seen a lot of shows?
I think it's a mix of things. As you said, I think there's some bias, but also it's hard to get the word out there about what you do. I tried putting some business cards and flyers up around the area, but generally, if somebody's looking for a kid's birthday party entertainer or something, they pretty much have it right in front of them by looking it up on the internet now. And flyers have become more obsolete, I'd say. And I do have a website, but if they don't look at the flyers, it's hard to find. And if you just search it on Google, it's near impossible. So I think if people can't find it online, then it becomes very hard to do in general.
So that being said, and that knowing that there's some restrictions with where you are, and we've all faced that. That's not anything unusual. Where do you want to take it with yourself? Where do you want to take your personal practice of this art form?
Well, my goal is to grow up to become an actor. So I think unlike many people probably listening to this podcast, I'm not looking at becoming a professional ventriloquist. But what I'm hoping it will do, which it's already done for me, is if somebody will see ventriloquist on a resume and think they have a part for it, it's something I can do that a lot of people can't. So likely, or I have a fairly good chance of getting the job I'm looking at if that's the kind of thing they need.
Right, and it's so funny you bring that up because that's you're the first interview we're doing from here in New York. Jay Johnson was done before I left, but the idea is that it's just you're right about going to school for theater. I'm here, that's what I'm going for, and so it certainly is. They really do go hand in hand in so many ways, as Jay taught us last week, and as you've been kind of echoing from the new generation. What theatrical aspects of ventriloquism? What drew your theater sensibility to this art?
Well, it's one of the few things that's harder to mimic with modern special effects. If you have a person up there and they're holding a doll and they're not an actual ventriloquist, it's pretty easy to tell. Right. So I think it is something that you can you can do that really sets you apart as an actor from everyone else and kind of allows you to develop your own personality rather than working off the tropes that other actors before you have set.
Yeah, certainly. It's such a distinguishing factor because people think actor, they think, oh, studying this method of acting or being a fan of David Mamet or whatever. They don't go, oh, and ventriloquism, you know?
Yeah. And I think one of the great careers you can get in this art is something like Jay Johnson, where he was respected as both an actor and a ventriloquist, and that him as an actor and it as the puppet Bob were able to develop their own personalities as both two different people and as a duo.
Yes, and off of that, we mentioned last week with Jay that that he was the only one, to my knowledge, who's ever done ventriloquism as live on set. Everything else today that uses a ventriloquist, it's dubbed over. Someone who's witnessing it, why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think they're not respecting both talents?
Well, I think part of it is now that you have that technology, you don't really have to go searching for a ventriloquist.
Right.
Now that you have that technology, you can just find an actor you like for the part and just put a dummy in their hands and do a voiceover. So I think it will be much harder to kind of get that look and respect in that form of art, especially on television, because they don't really need real ventriloquists anymore. And like Edgar Bergen, he could do a whole show, and it would just be him and Charlie McCarthy. And now it's more of an ensemble based, and they have all these other characters, so they don't really need that more personal one-on-one feel.
Right. And my last question here for you, Rob. Very, very interesting discussion. Uh, as someone who's doing it now, doesn't see themselves doing it years from now, wants to do the acting. Where do you hope the art goes, and where do you, from what you're seeing, where do you hope it'll be 10 and 20 years from now?
Well, what I've seen and what I'm hoping will truly come about, so many more odd forms of art are coming out there, and people are looking back to different decades in regards to technology and style. I mean, for a long time, earbuds, they focused on getting smaller and smaller, and now you have these big headphones and retro look. I think what I'm hoping we'll see is a new coming of the vaudeville and a new coming of older art forms that will seem more retro now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that I want ventriloquism to stay as a retro art, but I think that would give it a good basis to jump off of again. If people see it that way now, we can kind of work on it to bring it back into popularity. So really what I hope to see is in 50 or 70 years, a kid can still look at a ventriloquist on television and go, oh, that's a ventriloquist, I know that.
Great. Very
I
good.
just don't want it to get lost.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Rob Condas, very articulate. I forgot to ask, what grade are you in?
I'm in 11th grade.
A very articulate junior. You sound like a senior or a college freshman, let me tell you.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again to Rob. Wonderful, articulate young man, and I'm glad we had him on here. I always enjoy intelligent conversations with people around my age, teenagers. So, you can visit Rob at robventriloquist.webs.com. That's R-O-B ventriloquist.webs.com. Now, being here in New York City, I want to do a quick thing about this. I've been doing and seeing some amazing things. Some of you are my Facebook friends. You know that. You've seen the pictures, and I have to say it really has opened my eyes. And the people I'm meeting and the people I'm getting to know, it's just wonderful. And I say that because I'd like to point something out. Ventriloquism will always remain the soul of this program. However, because of all of that, because of being here in New York, opportunities to explore some different sides of this ventriloquism art form that maybe we don't normally think about explicitly on its own are presenting themselves in some really cool forms, and I cannot wait to bring some really unique discussions to you in the coming weeks and months ahead. We're here. Why would I not take advantage of the resources and bring the absolute best about this art form to you guys? And before we go, just an update on the podcasts that are soon to be deleted. I will be actually making a second Ventriloquism Weekly Podomatic page. That'll be Ventriloquism Weekly Archives or Vent Archives. I have yet to make it, so I have yet to know what they're going to allow me to do. But this coming Thursday, September 19th, I finally set a date to it, the first podcast, the one that's just me, there's no guests, is going to be deleted. And as soon as I have an archival site, as soon as I have a second page, I will post a link to that page on the main Podomatic page and on our Facebook groups. So you guys won't have to go without. You'll be able to get it. I just want to keep the ability to upload great episodes on this main page because that's where all you guys are. So that's it for us this week. I am asking you to please take charge of your podcast. Send your thoughts on all of our topics to ventriloquismweekly@gmail.com. Guys, we're here till December 21st. That is when I move back for a month back home, and then end of January we come back. We're here, and this is the longest stretch of episodes in one place we've been able to do. So I have the ability to go out and kind of try and better accommodate these requests. So send in. You have a dream interview, you have a topic we should do, send them in. That's why that Gmail exists. Also, we're going to be starting some behind-the-scenes footage. I filmed some with Rob, and that will be up at the same time this podcast is published. So go ahead and check that out. And as always, all of our episodes are available to download on iTunes. You can also listen and follow us on our hosting site, ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. That's ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. Signing off from New York City for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two.